I'm here today with Susan Gotterer. She is director of the New York Civil Liberties Union Nassau County branch. Um, Susan, I know you've been dealing with quite a lot lately. uh, for anyone who's unfamiliar, why don't you introduce us to Bruce Blakeman?
Oh, interesting. Bruce Blakeman is the Nassau County executive. He's been very busy since he's been in office, and he seems to have embraced the Trump agenda wholesale. And so we've been dealing with a transgender ban in Nassau County, a militia in Nassau County, and a mask ban in Nassau County. So he's been keeping us very busy.
Let's break down each one of them. First of all, the transgender ban. I understand that that does not just apply to high school sports. It also applies to professional leagues that want transgender players.
That's correct. So the emphasis is on the use of Nassau County facilities by any sports group that welcome transgender individuals. So that's really what it's about.
What has the NYCLU tried to do about this?
We actually brought a case in the courts, and so we have the legal challenge, and we'll be fighting any kind of discrimination, including this one, obviously, in the courts. So, yeah, we brought a case, and we will continue to pursue it, and that is ongoing right now.
And when this occurs, I hear arguments about banning transgender individuals in sports because of fairness, that there just would be a biological disadvantage. And when I hear those arguments, I listen to them. I don't feel as though they are particularly disturbing or unreasonable. But there have been some other arguments coming out of Blakeman's camp portraying transgender individuals as bullies for wanting to participate in sports.
I mean, I think it's important for everybody to understand that if you're going to, first of all, transgender individuals have been able and have had access to all of their rights, including choosing what sports teams to be on, for over 40 years under Title IX. So that begs the question, okay, so there's been this situation for over 40 years. Why now? What's going on now? What kind of egregiousness is happening now? And one of the things we've always said about this is that there isn't anything egregious going on. There wasn't even a case in Nassau County that prompted this. That's why we know this is purely about discrimination. That's number one. The other thing is that we know that in order to start passing laws against human beings, we have to demonize them first. And so all the things that you just described is the attempt to demonize, and then it's much easier to take people's rights away because people don't see them as people, or as people as deserving of having rights. So that's really the dynamic that's going on here.
Yeah, like I said, there might be some fair-minded arguments, but unfortunately, I don't see that being where the debate is centered.
And when you're talking about kids, you're also, it's always so strange to me. If you're going to be so passionate about taking people's rights away, why aren't you as passionate about looking at the situation that people who need their rights are in, meaning being bullied, right? The suicide rates amongst marginalized groups are much higher than groups that enjoy privileges. And so, I always kind of want to ask these people, you're so passionate about this thing that's going on that is barely really going on, that you're, fabricating, but you're not passionate about the suffering of teenagers, right, who are bullied in school, who are not respected for their differences, who are experiencing life in such a negative way that some of them are driven towards suicide. So, really, where's your heart? I don't know. I don't understand this at all.
Moving on, because unfortunately we have quite a few topics to cover. I think more disturbing than anything else is the fact that Bruce Blakeman wants to have a militia. And I just want to ask, in your legal opinion, is there anything lawful that a militia could provide Bruce Blakeman with that law enforcement, whether from Nassau County or called in during emergencies from other counties, could provide?
Well, first of all, let me set the record straight here. I am not an attorney,
Okay.
so I'm not going to give a legal opinion. But the bottom line is, this group of people are housed under the sheriff's department, which is separate from the police department. We don't know what the chain of command is, meaning we don't know who's going to be giving orders. We do know that what Bruce Blakeman says is that this group of people, and this is the truth, is empowered. It can be empowered by the county executive if he declares an emergency. And so, for some reason, I don't know, Bruce Blakeman has decided that maybe the police commissioner doesn't, have what it takes to cover everything in the case of an emergency. I'm not sure exactly what his reasoning was behind all of this, but the fact that this is in a separate department, it is not under the command of the police commissioner, and these are people who will be allowed to be armed. And that's pretty scary. We have requested records on how much training did they receive, what are their what's the agreement of what they are and are not allowed to do, who are they allowed to interact with, in what way, how much use of force training have they received if they're going to be carrying firearms. So this is just an absolute abomination. There's no protocol for this, and so we can't even assume that laws are going to be followed or are being followed. And so we're very happy that the minority caucus of the legislature has brought suit on this, and we are hopeful. And it's also, it's scary because he's already expressed hostility to immigrants, transgender individuals, and to protest. And if he has his own little force of people that he can declare an emergency, what does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean a protest getting out of hand?
How broad is his emergency
right.
power? Is a hurricane is an emergency, but I don't see why you would need an armed militia for it. Is a protest marching down a street and blocking traffic an emergency?
Right. So that's the concern. What is the parameters and definition of an emergency? And it's very broad. So that's what we're concerned about. If you've already expressed hostility towards certain groups of people and you have your own little group to enforce an emergency, then this creates a very dangerous situation.
And I think what you said, what you put emphasis on, you don't know the chain of command, you don't know what an emergency is. Mm-hmm. So talk about the chilling effect that this could have on legal right to assembly and speech in Nassau County.
Right. Well, I think that a lot of these tactics used by Donald Trump and his ilk are meant to create a chilling effect. That's what they want. They want to use fear and intimidation to shut down our freedoms. The good news is I see people still protesting. The questionable news is how do we know how many people have decided not to, right? Out of fear. So that's really the situation. But I'm encouraged by all the people who are out in the streets right now. So, we'll see.
And the last thing I want to cover, and that you mentioned, when Bruce Blakeman came in during the pandemic, he said something that I think, as far as civil rights goes, was a good call when he said masks should be optional. At least my personal opinion. I'm not asking you to sign on with it. He has since decided that masks should no longer be optional. And on the one point where we might have had something in common, he has sort of taken that away and said, no, the government should decide what you can and can't put on your face.
Yeah, and I think that the mask ban is so damaging in a lot of different ways. Number one, it will, people who are wearing, even though there's a carve-out, right, there's a carve-out for medical, how are the police supposed to know? How are they supposed to enforce this? Are they going to go over to people and say, why are you wearing your mask? They're not allowed to do that because medical information is private, right? So first of all, how are they supposed to enforce this? Second of all, it's going to create the situation where people who are wearing masks because of their health are going to be more cautious about where they go. And that's not okay in this country, right? I don't know. Am I going to get arrested? Are the police going to ask me why I'm wearing my mask? And so so that will curtail First Amendment rights and just being out in spaces for people with disabilities. And that's not okay because that will stop them from participating fully in public life and civil discourse. And that is not the aim. The aim is to expand participation in public life and civil discourse. So that's a big concern. The second concern is that I should be able to protest. And if I'm nervous about my boss seeing me or my family members seeing me because we don't agree and it'll create tension, I should be able to cover up my face. That's all there is to it. This isn't about crime. This is about wanting to know who is protesting on what side, because they want to know who's protesting on what side, and that is about as un-American as it gets.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If a protester were to commit a crime in the course of protesting, they can and should be arrested for it, and that has nothing to do with mask wearing.
That factually sounds correct. Yeah.
So he's come up with a law to prevent crime, but the crime is already against the law.
Well,
do you see what's confusing to me?
Well, the whole thing is confusing. I'm not going to comment on the law particularly, because actually the law is very specific and I am not an attorney. But the intent, that's why we question the intent of the law. Is the intent of the law really to lower crime or stop crime? That's what we're questioning here. It doesn't seem that way. It just doesn't seem that way. Because during the passage of the bill, the speeches that were made were not speeches about crime. They were speeches about people protesting on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. They weren't talking about crime. The speeches that were made in the legislature that day were about Palestinian protests. So you tell me what their intent is.
I have a pretty strong feeling it is connected to the incidences of doxing with Palestinian protests and the incidences now with Donald Trump talking about deporting certain individuals involved in them.
The window of our freedoms, our First Amendment rights are closing quickly. And it's alarming.
Last thing I want to ask. Nassau County is a purple type area. It went blue in several of the last few elections. It went red in a few too. Suffolk County is significantly redder. We have Ed Romaine as our county executive here, and he's doing a fantastic, relatively non-ideological job, and just trying to, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, how is it that the much more diverse, more blue area produces Bruce Blakeman, where the neighboring redder area has produced Ed Romaine?
Good question, and there's probably a lot of answers to that. One of the answers, and I'm not going to speak too much about Suffolk because I don't really cover Suffolk County, but I do know that there have been Department of Justice consent decrees. There have been lawsuits, which has cost the county a lot of money, which means that maybe the people running a county like that are being a little more cautious about running up against lawsuits and spending money on that kind of stuff. So I don't know. In Nassau County, we have a huge problem with transparency on all fronts of government. I don't know if you've ever tried to file for a Freedom of Information request, but I encourage you to try to do that and see how long it takes to get any information, if you get any information. So we've had that problem for a very long time. Nassau County, the nature of Nassau County government has always been very, very secretive, and that's part of the reason why they can get away with all these things, because advocates and people whose rights are being discriminated against don't have information from the county, and that works really well for the county. The Vera Institute wrote a report on police transparency, and Nassau County came in second worst out of all the largest departments in the country. Second worst in transparency and accountability. So that actually sums up most of the county government. And when you don't have information, you can do things like that. A lot of this is, they're governing by public relations. They're not governing by policy anymore. They're governing by public relations. What sounds good? What's going to feed the base? That's not policy.
I guess the last thing I want to ask you is what the Nassau County branch of the NYCLU has planned, and what can ordinary people do?
Well, ordinary people can help us with when we do our lobbying in Albany. Support groups that are under fire right now as far as their rights go. We have a volunteer program. We would love for people to sign up with us, and we teach people how to lobby, and we have working groups, and we table. So the Roller Rebels, who are the plaintiff in the transgender ban case, we table at their matches sometimes. So there's lots of things that people in Nassau County to do. Mostly show up. We have rallies. We go to the Nassau County Legislature, get on our mailing lists, and show up. And we'll be able to give you plenty of things to do.
Susan Goddard, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to ask sort of separately, is there any way, I'm sort of new at this whole political radio thing, is there any way you could connect me with some other groups or people in Nassau County who are doing good things?
Oh, yeah.
I want people to talk to. I want to promote positive civil discourse.
Yes. So do me a favor, send me an email, and I will definitely do that. Do you have my email address?
Let me type it in right now.
Yep.
What is it?
S. Gotterer, Gotterer,
Okay.
at NYCLU, NYCLU.org.
All right. I'll send an email. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. And then I'll be home tomorrow, so I'll be able to answer it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.